Hey everyone, we're back with another component of psychological capital, and this week we're focusing on self-efficacy. If you missed last week's video on hope, you can find it on my YouTube channel, and that kicks us off with the hero within in terms of psychological capital components. H is hope, E is efficacy, self-efficacy. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Self-efficacy is an individual's beliefs about their capabilities to produce at designated levels of performance that exercise influence over events that affect their lives. And Albert Bandura is a leading theorist in self-efficacy. You can find his work in your library, or there's actually some good sources online as well. And self-efficacy is different from self-confidence. Self-confidence is where you feel confident, you have a belief that you can accomplish something, but maybe you don't work hard at becoming better at it. And self-efficacy really thinks about those levels of output that might change your life. So it's not just learning how to do something, it's learning how to do it so well that you become maybe even well known for accomplishing that task, and you have that desired sense of continued growth in that task. So where does self-efficacy come from? The first source is mastery experiences. Successful performance of a task. When we have clear evidence that we've successfully performed something, it can increase and strengthen our self-efficacy. Failure to achieve a task can damage our self-efficacy. So it's not just learning a task, because we can learn a lot of tasks. It's learning that task well and pushing yourself to set new challenges to become better and better so that you truly master the task. A second source is social persuasion. Social persuasion is when someone other than yourself, typically someone you respect or you hold in high regard, calls attention to the fact that you were really successful in your efforts to accomplish something. So they reach out and they talk about how they saw you in a meeting, how they saw your presentation, how they heard you play a classical piano piece, something that you did where they mentioned how successful you were in that. So hearing from other people about our success increases our level of self-efficacy. The third one is observing role models. So looking for someone that you feel has achieved success in the area that you're looking to grow, and then emulating that person's actions and behaviors to get yourself to the same point they're at, or even surpass their level of mastery. When we observe others, it does influence our beliefs about what we can accomplish and motivates us to work harder to accomplish that task. So let's talk a little bit about why this is important. Why do we want self-efficacy? So when we think about self-efficacy and human functioning, there's 4 different categories. 2 of them are kind of a subcategory where we would see self-efficacy come through and be a desired component or attribute that we would want to have in our lives. So the first is the cognitive area. People with high self-efficacy are more likely to have lofty aspirations. They see the big picture, they're able to think long term, they're critical thinkers. Their beliefs in what they can accomplish aren't just minimum accomplishments. They're willing to set challenging goals and then go after those goals. From a motivational perspective, we think about intrinsic motivation, how we internally motivate ourselves. In the terms of self-efficacy is thinking about what we can do. So you form beliefs about what you can do. You think about the likely outcomes of doing the thing that you're trying to do, whatever that task is. You set goals and you plan courses of action. So this is where even hope comes in to the motivational piece of self-efficacy. Are there multiple pathways to get to my goal? And how am I motivating myself to achieve those goals and objectives and make changes along the way so that I actually get to that success level that I'm looking for. The third area is with mood or affect, and this can be high or low. So when we think about self-efficacy, people who have high levels of self-efficacy are able to regulate their emotional states well when they feel threatened or in a situation that's out of their control. They have coping mechanisms in place for making the environment less threatening. They're able to kind of see and identify the stress and anxiety and use strategies to minimize that anxiety and stress. On the other hand, those who have low self efficacy often find themselves in states of depression. It could be recurring depression based on internal thoughts, things like, I am a failure. And that could be just from not accomplishing one very small task, but just giving yourself that label of being a failure. It could be from having have your hopes kind of defeated. And so you have this weakening of self-efficacy, and ultimately you end up in this downward spiral. People with low self-efficacy sometimes don't look for social relationships that are supportive. They either have very few social relationships or they're around other negative people. And so those are some things to think about in self-efficacy and human functioning. Why do you want your employees to have high levels of self-efficacy? Why should you try to have high levels of self-efficacy? I think it's critical for self-efficacy when we're thinking about accomplishing goals, especially when we're trying to make lasting change. So people often, I'm taking easy goals here. I want to read more books. Well, why? What's the purpose of that? And again, read more books. What does that mean? If you read one book last year, it's two this year. Okay. Are you trying to learn something? Are you reading books for fun? You're reading fiction books? Are you reading because you want to become a writer? Are you reading books about leadership because you're trying to be a better leader? What is it that you're really trying to do? And reading might be one of the mechanisms, one of the pathways, right, to achieve your goal. But ultimately, you may be reading the leadership books because you want to be a better leader and you're trying to make lasting change in your organization. If you don't have the belief that you can be successful as a leader, that you can successfully impact others, it's going to kind of make all your goals and strategies for becoming a better leader sort of like, why am I doing this? If I really don't believe I can do it, why am I doing it? So self-efficacy is really important when we think about creating goals, accomplishing goals, and making lasting change. So I'm going to end with a quote here. This is also from Bandura. He says, people's beliefs about their abilities have a profound effect on those abilities. Ability is not a fixed property. There is a huge variability in how you perform. People who have a sense of self-efficacy bounce back from failure. They approach things in terms of how to handle them rather than worrying about what can go wrong. And so I think looking at the positive outcomes that we can achieve is so critical when we think about building our own self-efficacy.